It's Garrett here at Thinkering, and today we have the pleasure of being with guest writer now for Thinkering Media, Impact board member, and senior director over at a well-known company, Edmentum, Tatiana Ciccarelli. Tatiana, what's going on?
Hi, Garrett. How are you?
Doing super well, and yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit about this article
Yeah.
that you wrote for us, Summer Matters, Meaningful Ways Educators Can Stay Sharp Without Losing Summer. You know, the interesting thing, Tatiana, is that this article performed really well on our media channel. In fact, some of our best numbers. So clearly speaking to a need at a time. What was your inspiration in writing it?
Yeah, I think that summer is undervalued from an educational and intellectual standpoint. I think that anyone who's not in education thinks that it's like literally that scene from what was it? The Hangover, when Bradley Cooper is a teacher and he leaves and he's like, I do not know you, you do not exist.
Hey, Mr. Winnick.
The weekend, Budnick. I don't know you. You do not exist.
And I think for like 98% of teachers, and not just teachers, principals, district leads, they never truly disconnect. So you might as well reimagine what the summer looks like. I took some really great opportunities for professional learning over the course of my career in the summer. There were times when I could sort of cherry pick how I wanted to spend my time, and rather than being forced to go to something or prescribed some sort of professional learning by my principal or district, I was able to stay in the driver's seat and do my own sort of curious investigation. So I think that while I want every level of educator to have a restful, enjoyable summer, doing things that fill their bucket, you know, like spending time with family, traveling, relaxing, reading a book or not, I do think that we can find ways to sprinkle in just as we expect with our students, you know, to avoid that summer slide. I do think we can find ways to sprinkle in with educators meaningful professional learning so that they stay fresh, so that they've reflected in a meaningful, impactful way, and that they're ready to tackle the new school year.
Yeah, I think the one of the things you said was summer slide, and relating it back to teachers. We rarely talk about the teacher summer slide. I think it's just as challenging for an educator, one, like depending on age level, to say goodbye to that group of humans that they just worked an
Yeah.
entire year with very closely. But then two, like getting back into the swing of things after this summer break.
Hmm.
It's a muscle, as you know, like when you're teaching, you have to exercise that muscle. And I think it's really important to call out that we're asking our kids, our learners to be lifelong learners. But if we cut off that learning every, 2 months of every year, it's
Completely.
not really reflecting kind of what we ask for learners, which I know both you and I are big on.
Hmm.
Going back to, you know, summer activities that educators can do, what are some like thoughts around beyond the book, beyond the movie and the leisure time? What are some thoughts around like what teachers should be doing?
Find that July, for the most part, it's hard to create buy-in to start thinking about going back to work. And so for the month of July, my advice is take July. You know, you need that month. And a lot of schools, especially, you know, in Florida where I live locally, they've ended now. They've been done for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So their summer's already started. Take that first month, whatever that first month is, middle, June, July, whatever it might be, to just plant, right? I fully understand and honor the moment where you have to kind of put the bag down. But
Hmm.
I think that August always presents a really nice opportunity for teachers to investigate what is happening locally that might enhance their teaching practice. And honestly, I think at the smallest level, that could be just teachers getting together for coffee, because so many
Mm.
teachers are friends with their own colleagues within their buildings and systems. Just getting together for coffee and casually reflecting on the year and then sort of brainstorming for the year ahead. There's more formal opportunities for sure. I remember that I took I think a 10-day training over the summer for Algebra for All, and I loved it. But I was a math person in a math curriculum. I was a math teacher. And so it was great for me because I was rested and I was ready to
Mm.
re-engage and sharpen my skills professionally. So I think that first month, whatever the first month is, take it. Take the time to go to the beach, to be with family, to travel, to straighten out your life that you've been avoiding for the last 180 days. And
Forcibly.
then in that
Yeah.
second month of summer, whatever that might be, later July, August, take a look at ways that you can just, at the smallest levels, start to reinvigorate those muscles, to use your term, because September rolls around very quickly.
It does, and hits hard when it comes to almost an ontological shock as teachers go back and try to settle in. And ultimately, it already takes quite a bit of time in classrooms to get things organized, for that classroom management and culture to get embedded. And coming in fresh, I think, is a leg up on getting ahead of your getting ahead of your students, which we ultimately have to do. I think there are certain areas that the data shows, we're seeing more behavior issues in classrooms. We're seeing more pushback when it comes to work and grades and testing. And I think that all comes down to an unregulated classroom. And I think what you're talking about, which is awesome, is ways in which educators can help regulate themselves. I love the idea of coffee. Thinking about those teachers out there that are looking for tangible resources, that's definitely one. Find your 3 closest friends at your school, schedule a weekly coffee up until school for that last month, and go over, reflect. You're asking of educators what we ask of students, and we don't see the outcome successful in the classroom. And imagine if teachers would actually start doing so themselves. And I think reflection is best done in a group of people that you trust, because then there are other people to be like, Garrett, you're crazy. Tatiana, for me, being one of those people.
There's also the assisted professional learning that occurs over the summer as well. So regardless of what organization your school or district has partnered with, more often than not, and I can speak from the New York City Public Schools lens, more often than not, there is some sort of summer learning happening virtually.
Yeah.
And while a lot of teachers will put that off and say that it's non-essential, and it's not, it's not mandatory. You don't have to attend as part of your year-long, PL allotment. I do think that taking an hour out of your day on an August afternoon to just kind of hear out the partner and the updates on the solution, I think, is important. A lot of change happens from the EdTech world. A lot of change happens from April, May to August. And all of that change is is an improvement for the next school year. We have this BTS, back to school motion, constantly, and it's a predictable cycle where we have reflected and reviewed, and now we are tightening up, our screws and our alignment for the next year. But we roll that out frequently throughout the summer. I know Edmentum has several opportunities for educators to attend summer sessions just to kind of hear from us what to expect next year. And rarely are there these large blanketed changes that require a tremendous amount of professional learning, a tremendous amount of turnkey. It's little adjustments here and there, but still, not hearing that the first week of school when you're already at capacity, I think, is really important. So that's one thing that I would recommend, all levels of educator take an interest in, is what are my current partners offering for this summer? Making sure that if I'm a district lead, I communicate that to the district, make sure that the link is available for teachers, principals to join, and then strongly suggested, obviously not mandated, but you can even just listen to it in the car. You can listen to it at the beach. And this way you're not walking into school unarmed. The other thing I will say about the small teacher friend groups over the summer is that I was an 8th grade teacher. So to your point, it's hard to say goodbye to some students in New York City. 8th grade is graduation year. And I didn't have a whole lot of communication with the teachers that they were going to in 9th grade. But if you are a teacher in a year that feeds nicely into another year within your building or within your system, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there just to share, hey, quick 5-minute best practices with what works with these students, or maybe, just again, a little bit of a leg up for what can be expected in the next year. I know that my 6th and 7th grade colleagues and friends would tell me, hey, listen, for this student, try X. For this student, try Y. And then in 8th grade, when I had them, it benefited me just by having that small conversation because I usually didn't know the student and they just spent 2 years with that student. Not just the student, but potentially family needs, things like that, et cetera. So all of that little context and intel doesn't have to feel formal, and yet they're top of mind for us anyway, for most educators. So we might as well use that time, I think, wisely when we're with our friends slash colleagues, or in more formalized ways throughout the summer.
And teachers out there that are listening, like, write this shit. I'm going to say it, write this shit down.
Write this
Like, that's
down.
very tangible advice and tools and a way of thinking when it comes to the summer. One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking is, if you're doing, especially with like ed tech partners, because teachers will get what's coming up and what, they don't, to your point, they don't get the tangible, like what tools are being introduced, things like that. But if you're doing it over the summer, if you're scheduling with Edmentum or whatever your school district partner is when it comes to tech LMSs, things like that, is you're putting the ball in your court on how you learn those things.
Absolutely.
Because regardless, you're going to go into PD at the beginning of the year typically, and be in what is ironically the worst learning environment ever, which is sage on the stage, presentation, here's this, that, this, everybody got it. That's like insufferable. So like if you're at those events and you've gone to, a summer PD that you've scheduled, you get that time. You don't necessarily have to pay attention the full time. You again kind of have hacked the system in putting the ball back in your court. So super, super, super helpful advice. I think one of the big challenges for teachers as well, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is less and less does a teacher's salary support, even with a summer break, their families at home. And so a lot of times you have teachers that are going from one job to another. So that I think is a really challenging time for them when it comes to staying up on, that school muscle, if you will. Any thoughts around that or advice? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I'm a teacher first through, regardless of the direction that my career has gone in. I wouldn't be where I am today without that, over 10 years of classroom experience.
Yeah.
And coming from a system like NYCPS in a city with a very high cost of living, I would tutor 3 or 4 days a week, and I have friends who are teaching summer school, grading exams, coaching, anything that in New York City would be called quote unquote pensionable. They're investing those hours in, but even, just tutoring on the side to make a few extra dollars. So I understand that the tablecloth can only cover so much of the table. So that's why I say, first and foremost, it has to make sense for you, your schedule, and your family. Your responsibilities financially, to your home, to your children, that paramounts all other responsibilities, especially over the summer, because the summer a lot of times is an opportunity for our teachers to return to themselves, to return to their roles as mother, as father, as, caretaker, whatever it might be. So first and foremost, that is the priority. That is why I think that the summer, when you reimagine it, can be looked at as what works for you in toto, not just what works for your schedule. I have a couple extra hours on my calendar. I can find some PL. But does it make sense for me to trek all the way into Manhattan in person, or can I attend something virtually, right? And so it has to make sense in the ecosystem of your household, financially and professionally. But I think that there are a lot of opportunities where companies have already partnered with large districts. We partner with New York City Public Schools, and we're offering just kind of like free, refreshers throughout the summer. And that, I think, is an opportunity that as an educator you should take, because it really is not costing you any money. It's costing you time, but it's time well spent if you look at it that way. So first and foremost, I think maximizing the summer as an opportunity to make a little extra money is something I always can empathize with. But if you can find that balance, especially as I mentioned in that second month of summer where you kind of you're in a routine, I think it's worthwhile to look into some meaningful PL. And to your point earlier about just professional development as a thing. is something that we find ourselves kind of looking at and being forced to improve year after year. I, as a teacher, have sat through some mind-numbing professional learning experiences, and
Oh
so
my
that's
God.
why when I went into professional learning, I have a background in professional learning, and when I went into it from the lens of what did I hate about those experiences, and how do I make sure I am never the sage on the stage. And I think the one thing that teachers can do, not to give a teacher homework, not to assign them more work at all, because that's not what my intention is. But if I knew I was going to attend something, I would do a quick Google, or at this point today, you can just do a quick chat GPT. Give me an overview of what I'm walking into, because I like to be the person at the table in those professional learning sessions that was able to facilitate at least the conversation at my table. If I'm not participating in something, I am bored, right? And so, at Edmentum, I know that we keep our professional learning very interactive, but it's always helpful to just kind of skim over our website or skim over your solution partner's website just to see what they're promoting, so that you kind of have a little bit of intel going into that professional learning. So it's not the first time you're receiving the information, because it's a lot and we're maxed out most of the time. But I just think it's all about reimagining how this time is spent, not only through the summer, but continuing that professional learning throughout the year. You should be an active participant in it. And if companies are not doing a good job to keep that active participation going, you need to let that organization know.
Fully agreed. And I also think, the advice of this kind of small friend group that we keep coming back to can still be tangible and applicable for someone that has picked up another job. I think that's just good in general,
Yeah.
is to at least find colleagues or mentors around you. It might not be contextual to your job in the sense of you might be watching this and not be a teacher. You might be a district lead. You might be a ed tech person. Regardless, I know as a leader, it's always good to surround yourself with people that are not going to just tell you what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
going back to wanting our learners to really critically think and have logic and the ability to fail and all of those things, that comes with surrounding yourself with a group of people that not necessarily critical, kindly critical, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, so that we can learn. I think it's always good as educators, especially in the classroom, to dedicate yourself to being a better educator every single day. And that doesn't have to cease during the summer, regardless of the challenges you may face as a teacher in 2026, which we know are extensive. I think we all feel overall inflation and things and how that affects our lives. But yeah, amazing, tangible advice from Tatiana today. What's in your future? What's in the next coming months? What are you up to,
Well,
career
I like
wise?
to stay fresh over the summer as much as the next person. And just
Love
quickly
it.
to your point of, these cohorts of friends, it's important to make sure you're not in an echo chamber. And I think that goes both personally and professionally. When I was younger, it used to be called constructive criticism. I don't know if we say that anymore. But the constructive piece is very important, because you have to be able to be with people who come from a place of love so that you can hear it, but might see something a little bit differently. And I also feel like, too, what I'm going to be doing this summer, that we as human beings have, varying interests that make us better at this job. So don't think for one second as a teacher that the visit you took to Yosemite to go fishing, or your hiking experience, or the pottery class you might have taken over the summer, doesn't come into the fold at some point in the value that you add in the classroom. I was a math teacher with 1 degree in art. And I thought to myself, how will I ever bring art into the math classroom? And yet I constantly found ways to incorporate the things that made me a valuable human being into ways for me to become an invaluable educator. So I think that even if you're not attending a specific professional learning session, you probably are doing something that betters you culturally and betters you personally. Don't underestimate how valuable that experience is also in the classroom. So if you're traveling at all this summer, if you're spending time with people, if you're getting yourself out there, experiencing new things, all of that is learning and ultimately makes you a more faceted human being, which makes you a better educator. So to that, I will be attending NCSA in Austin, Texas. So anyone who loves assessment, I have an assessment literacy background, and that is one of my favorite conferences. I'm very excited to be there. Edmentum will be presenting, and I will be part of that team.
Awesome.
And then 2 weeks after that, you and I will be at ISTE, and I'm so excited because that's local. Orlando's only a quick drive for me, so I'm really looking forward. And then beyond that, I am actually taking some time off this summer to go back to school in Europe, to the school that I graduated from, because I want to sharpen my own skills culturally and professionally. So it'll be a great summer
Amazing.
for everyone, hopefully.
I love that you reframed what seems like an awesome European vacation into a learning experience
I
for
didn't want
yourself
to say.
and for others. You know what, Tatiana? You're doing it for others. You're out
Somebody
there.
has to.
You're out there sipping the finest cappuccino for the youth. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I'm attending a week-long cultural responsiveness on-site program where, surrounded by these incredible artifacts in the Eternal City, we will be able to speak about our responsibility to make sure that for the future generations, these cultural landmarks and these diverse treasures that we have that kind of create this universality of what it means to be a human being remain intact and respected despite conflict, climate change, etc. So I am very much looking forward to it. Yes, I will be having the cappuccino from the source, but it is all to make sure that I am engaging in a way that I'm a better citizen and bringing that forward in my work. So
Yeah, I love it. And, one of the things that that kind of came to mind as we were talking about that is there's this very cliche saying of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I think that's extremely true. And I think part of what we do at Thinkering is to try and reignite that passion for teaching. And I think teaching is, again, to cliche, this calling that we all experience. And initially, when we get in as educators, we're super excited, right? And that slowly, not really slowly these days, very quickly gets squashed out of a lot of teachers.
burnout and turnover.
Yeah, but I think if we can root back in, hey, I actually loved this.
Yeah.
I loved these authentic learning moments. And how do we explore more of those within the classroom? I think it can help to really sustain and then learn to love, because it's not always a love at first sight relationship. Find the things that you love about it. Even like you saying, going to Italy, maybe you're a social studies teacher and you go to Italy or a geography teacher, and you go to Italy and you're able to bring maybe even a different take on culture back and discuss it and have a critically, a critical discussion, if you will, when it comes to, world culture and things like that. So again, awesome stuff. Always love catching up, and really looking forward to what you bring me back from Italy specifically, and more so just, your take on as we head back into the year, into the school year, and ramp things right back up. To your credit, you just recently, were promoted in your career and are out there doing even bigger and better things for Edmentum, a really respectable company and a partner to Thinkering Collective. And I look forward to really working closer with you on the Thinkering mission, getting out there to conferences and trying to get the word out that we're here to humanize education. So thanks again so much, Tatiana, for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.